Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Parry. I'm the author of How to Remove Trauma Response. And I just want to talk to you today about two errors that are commonly made when therapists and coaches are working at any kind of transformational change. So the two errors that I see people make is, first of all, kind of where they focus. Let me just restart this little tablet and it'll work a lot better. Yeah, so the first error is where they focus. And the second error is how we focus. So let's just talk about the first one. So I've done a full training on this inside the Trauma Removal Club. I do a deep dive every month, and this is the subject of it this time. And so what I'm going to be talking about in the deep dive training is how to evoke what I call the invisible twin, which I mention in the book, and I'll talk about in a moment, using imagination. And it links in very strongly to what I'm talking about here today, very briefly, which is that we can often make a mistake in terms of where to focus, but also as well how to focus. So let's just look at the where to focus. When clients come to us, they first of all bring a problem, something that's happening that they don't want to be happening anymore. And then they have what you might think of as what they want instead, if you like, their kind of desired outcome. And the big mistake that's often made is that some therapists and coaches will look very heavily at the problem. And some therapists and coaches will look very heavily at the desired outcome. And of course, in certain circumstances, these can each be helpful. But that kind of like just power through and get to where you want to be, the kind of motivational speaker style will focus very heavily on the desired outcome. And my sense of it is that the best place is to focus on the barrier that is actually stopping that thing. And this is what I call the invisible twin, where there's a part of the client that basically says, I know you want to get to this point, but I don't. I think there's going to be something much worse going on if I'll allow you to drop the problem. And this is basically how the continuation of the problem makes sense. So my view is not to focus on the problem, not to focus too heavily, although it is helpful to an extent, on the desired outcome, but to focus on this barrier part here that is stopping the change. Because once that's not there, and it'll be an internal psychological autonomic nervous system response, once that's not there, instead of hitting this barrier and stopping, it'll actually be very easy to create the change. So that's the first mistake, where we focus. And so I'm arguing that it's this part here that stops the change, that ensures that the problem actually makes sense, that it's not a pathology or a disorder or anything like that, but it's something that makes perfect sense given their history that is simply playing out today. And so this is where I suggest our focus should be. The second thing, which really links into this part, like how do we understand and evoke that invisible twin using the imagination, is how we focus. It's very, very easy for therapists and coaches to basically get and keep the client in their head. Now, the great thing about experiential work, where you place clients into safe experiences, is that there's a whole lot more understanding in the body than there is in the mind, ironically enough. And so the imagination is a great way in order to connect the client to an experience, get them out of their head, get them into an experience, and the learning there really, really amplifies through these imaginal experiences. And so that's why in this training within the Trauma Removal Club that's there for this month, I'm looking at how to evoke the invisible twin using just the imagination. And so what we're looking at there is a few things. First of all, we're looking at, in deeper form, this concept of the invisible twin, which I've just touched on, and why that's so important for change work, for trauma work, and trauma removal. Secondly, we're going to be looking at some imaginal techniques by which you can really access that part of the client that feels scared of the change, that feels as though there'd be a greater suffering with the change. And finally, how you can actually then put explicit language on that invisible twin response, on that autonomic nervous system response. So you've actually got words that really explain the core prediction at play, that core trauma prediction at play. So if you're interested in doing that training and all the other coaching we have inside the Trauma Removal Club, simply click on the link below. It's freshtherapists.com/join. And it's really affordable. It's just $6.99 a month. So I hope either way, whether you join us or whether you don't, that this is a helpful little reminder that the big mistakes we can often make is that we focus in the wrong place. And then secondly, we get in our head too much, keep the client in their head too much. There you go. Rather than using experiential work, which of course the imagination is so good at. So I'll see you soon. I hope to see you inside the Trauma Removal Club. Let me know any questions you've got, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.